real this time.
Happy whatever day it is.
And I'm still fixing my bang.
My whatever.
Still fixing my hair, but I'm here, ready. Happy Monday, happy whatever day it is. Happy Carlie's Couch.
Hey.
We're here as usual with that heat. No,
she not though, but go ahead.
Yeah, the later it gets in the day, the more weird I kind of get. Today, we want to focus on finding your personal philosophy. Wow. And this is something I threw in as a topic a long time ago because it's something I actually did a couple years ago. And I mentioned it because I thought it was a good exercise for when you're feeling like, what am I doing? You know, like, how is all this stuff connecting and why? You know, and sometimes it just feels like that where you're like, I'm either stressed out or I'm busy or I don't feel like I'm doing enough, whatever that may be. It's like, all right, like, what's my main focus? What is it that's really driving me through everything that I'm putting my energy towards? And so a personal philosophy is centered on beliefs, concepts or ideas, and attitudes. So it's essentially asking, what's the approach to your life? Maybe almost kind of like maybe not a tagline on like a business, but maybe like their value proposition or maybe their mission or vision.
Mission or vision statement. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, something like that. Like what is the driver that's pushing you in all the things that you're doing? So what you're kind of asking is, who am I? What am I about? Which is really important to understand. And what is my purpose? And it's typically a word or a phrase. I've seen a few, and we'll get into it, that were just like word. Like, you know, 4 separate words, like, you know, I'm about respect and responsibility and whatever. Or it can be like a sentence or a statement.
No, thank you for sharing that. So outside of thinking of just having goals or using affirmations and things, like, why is it important? Like, what are the benefits to having a personal philosophy?
So I'm going to read all of these first because they all are kind of similar and go together, but then we can kind of talk about it as we're going. But first of all, it just impacts your thoughts, tendencies, and behaviors and plays an active role in your daily life. So by that, it's like, okay, if my personal philosophy is XYZ, then why would I do that? Or if my personal philosophy is this, then it makes sense to say yes to this project or yes to this person. Because like you said at the beginning, one of the things that I found that was stressing me out a little bit and why I wanted to do this is because not just feeling like, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. Not necessarily that, but sometimes it feels like I'm just doing everything, or I'm saying like yes to everything. And yet like, yeah, it might be cool, or I might can do it or like it, but it's like, what's really, you know, my thing? And like, I don't need to try to do everything. So it could be helpful for that too. It serves as a compass to align your thoughts, words, and actions. So same kind of thing. Now you're just more conscious of the things that you're saying and thinking, having the awareness to say, oh, that doesn't really go with my personal philosophy. And it influences the friends you choose, the love you find, the purchases you make, the jobs you get, where you live, the way you feel about yourself, and the possibilities you hold for yourself. So that's elongated and more examples of when we say how it affects you in every decision, right? So that's to really give you the real like breakdown. Like it can help you with every decision you're making because it needs to line up with this. And if your life's not lined up with that, then
what are you doing? It's kind of a way to check alignment. Like to me, that's what it sounds like. It's like giving you a guide to make sure all of those things are in alignment, because we can do everything, but why do everything if it's not in alignment with what you want to work towards, like what your guiding compass is, like it said.
And that's why I personally felt like I needed to make one. When I heard about it, I was interested in listening to the episode, first of all, because I was kind of feeling like, what am I doing? You know, and like last week I was like, what am I doing? Like, I honestly,
this morning, I
honestly was like, damn, I could just like kind of go to Germany and like chill and like do some stuff. Like, sometimes, you know, you're just like, for what? And I think I was kind of feeling like that and just feeling like I'm being pulled in all these different directions. And granted, this is like 2 years ago. But that's why I kind of felt like I needed to do one, because at that time I was kind of feeling lost about direction with my business and other things. Like, what should I be focusing on? And so I was like, maybe it'll give me a clearer vision or a clearer idea if I can understand what's the center of what everything should kind of tie back to.
Yeah, and I like it because of, instead of just saying like, oh, you know, if this is in alignment with my purpose, because, you know, you could, I like to be real broad about things because it's easier to let things slide, but really taking that time to think through, you know, what it is. And I'm sure you'll get into more questions, like hard questions to help me, you know, figure that out. But I like it because it's going deeper than just saying, oh, you know, respect is my thing. Okay, well, but what about that? Like, why is that important?
Yeah. And maybe it's not hard. Like it may not necessarily be a hard exercise. For me personally, it's because I have interest in so many things, or like I said, like we're talented people. We can do a lot of things. And, you know, so it's just hard to like, how do you just make a sentence, right? That's the part about it, is like making this like, boom, a phrase. Like he says, every day is an opportunity to create a living masterpiece. Even if I took that and was like, I'll say that every day and let that be an application to my life, that does still like affect your decisions, or, you know, that can still be positive for me. But how does that apply to everything I'm doing with my work, with my friends, with my personal life? And so that's why it's important for you to develop and go through those steps to make your own. And so basically what we're doing is crafting a clear idea of like what your personal philosophy is, because this is what guides your thoughts, words, and actions. So going through the steps of it, it kind of starts with a mind map. And also for those watching, like I have my notebook right here from 2017. I mean, I still wrote in it like last week too. I keep writing in it. That's crazy. I'm not even halfway through and I've had this for 2 years, but I have 500 other notebooks. And it says my personal philosophy. At the top it says, who am I? What matters to me? So the first thing you're going to do is mind map. So we're going to use Carlie here. And I know you're not going to like think of everything. And also, you know, when you get blanks, like we're going to keep moving, of course. Cool. But you guys go through this same thing, and you can do it with a notebook now, or I would say listen to this and then take some time after to sit down and do it. But the first thing is you're going to ask yourself certain questions, right? And at the top I wrote, who am I? What matters to me? And I wrote that because that was what I was thinking when I was like, man, I need to figure this out. So first, let's think about who are people that you look up to and what they stand for. So that would be something to think about. And during this time, you can just like jot these things down, like jot some people, jot those characteristics that you admire in other people. Is there anything that you kind of have for that?
Yeah, I have a couple people. Mentioned it before, but I love creatively what Rihanna does, like how she has her hand in different buckets that are very intentional, but they're very important to her and they're different. But I like how she like creatively expresses herself.
So expression,
creativity, authentic expression.
And then I'm sorry, because I feel like now I'm kind of like putting stuff in you too. So like, I would say do it by yourself, but we're gonna piggyback.
And then I would also say like thinking about people in my life, like I would say Lex, like action, like she takes action. I would say Lanicia for planning. So Lala's a really big planner and she works on execution. Like she always has steps. So thinking about, you know, a lot of people in my life, like those are Fifi because she's free. Like, you know, like just things that I admire about them and what they're doing.
So some things you've kind of said: freedom, creativity, action-oriented planning. Okay. Some other things you would ask are about your favorite quotes and like meaningful things to you. What would some of those be?
Whenever you're chasing your personal legend, the whole universe conspires together to help you achieve it. Rising tides raise all ships.
Like achievement and community achievement.
It's community achievement, and it's also like personal legend. So in my head, that's like purpose, like the reason why I'm here, and like when you're chasing that and when you're in alignment, like the whole universe, like manifestation.
Okay, manifestation. To me, that sounds like why it's important to have a personal philosophy because of that quote. Because if you're clear on that, you can see better how the universe is conspiring. So using that kind of in a different way, I think that does make sense. And then like, what are some of your favorite words and things that just like matter to you if you're just like saying things?
Synchronicity. And you know that. I say that all the time, just things happening like divinely, like timing, like things you couldn't have planned. Agape. So love, like unconditional love, like giving and receiving, just being open without expectation. Faith and purpose.
Okay. I think it's interesting because you said something about how like you can't plan it or how things just kind of happen, but then you also admire planners. So that's interesting. So what you would do, listeners, is in the same path or in the same vein, you're kind of just doing like a spill of your mind. And I would suggest writings, like writing all these things out. And I'm going to read some of the stuff that I wrote down, and it does not make complete sense because like I said, I was just trying to like write things down. And while I'm doing that, I want to have Carlie, like, if you just like jot a bunch of stuff down. So like permission, don't be listening to me kind of right this second, because it can give you time to do it. But you can kind of go on tangents with it too. Like maybe you write planning, but like something else to it, or just a bunch of words and things that you feel are important or things that matter kind of to you. So here's what I wrote. Ladies and gentlemen on the couch.
Dun, 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 dun.
So mine, I kept bringing up authenticity. That's the word that kept popping up for me. I wrote authenticity. It bridges the gap between finding the sweet spot in your life where you will be successful, because that's what you're made to do. And I think what I was kind of thinking about is, it's so important to me, authenticity, because you have to know yourself to be authentic. And when you're authentic, it's like things just line up, right? Like when you're really clear on where you're supposed to be, like that's where you do the best work. That's where you make the good relationships. So I wrote authenticity bridges destiny. Like I was trying to figure out like, how does this turn into a saying? So I have authenticity bridges destiny. I have success lies in authenticity. Authenticity makes destiny happen. So I'm trying to figure out like, what is my saying thing going to be? Other things I started writing because I was like, that's not quite it. I wrote authenticity makes the path easier and more freeing if you recognize it and more comfortable in it. Authenticity is what's true to you, what you're genuinely excited about, that what no external factor can change. That's where you thrive. And so then I started thinking about, well, I couldn't get away from the authenticity words. I'm like, all right, how does this tie all my projects together? And this is one of the most important parts, because now you're kind of saying, all right, if it's authenticity or something around that's my personal philosophy or what's really important to me, do I see that in the things that I'm doing? Do I see that in my work? Do I see that in my projects and in the way I'm communicating with my friends and relationships and other things? And so I said, yeah, that kind of does tie all my projects together, because my work is in a lot of social media as far as the marketing and development I do with my clients. And so I love what I do with marketing and social media, because someone's social media presence relies on authenticity. So I like helping them discover, who are they really, and how do you convey that really, and how do you really connect with your audience, because you're authentic about who you are, your mission, your product, whatever, as a business. So that's part of it I like. Living your best life requires authenticity. Mm-hmm, so just like how with the Success Squad that I was trying to start up, just like with Carlie's Couch, authenticity, I can see how that's important for me in doing projects like this, because it's always about growing and understanding who you are to be your best self. So again, just kind of looking at how these words and how this stuff kind of like actually makes sense across the board. And I remember, because I don't have it in this book, but I remember part of the first thing I did too was on a whiteboard. It's where I really like wrote out a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, like, what do I care about? And I remember that I wrote African-American community. Like it's big to me to help people. It's big to me to be a beacon of, like, authenticity and to push that. It's important to me to do this, this, and this, and this. And so really I was trying to bridge all of this. And towards the end, I said some stuff like authenticity bridges the gap between just existing and existing with purpose. The goal of my growth is authenticity. Then I started getting into growth and using that word. And so I actually honestly don't have the final, any personal philosophy written down, but that was kind of I have the chicken scratch of my going through that. Mm-hmm. So the next step that you would do is then going through that to see what things stand out. So Carlie's written some stuff down now. So I'm going to let you talk for a minute and just kind of like, what was your mind doing, or where did you go with it?
Yeah. So I started with also planning and expecting miracles, because I was thinking about planning in the sense, but I'm not a planner, but it's like, how can I plan this divinely created path for myself? But planning to be ready and prepared. And then I put exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or think, using my testimony, my gifts, my experiences, my story, my heart, soul, courage, taking risks others can't or won't, creating access, self-care, self-love, exposure, manifesting, rebuilding, learning and unlearning, being a catalyst for change and uplifting the community, breaking down systemic inequalities. Then I circled
MLK Jr. over here. Shit.
but circling back to what I have on my website is creating a life that you love. Create a life that you love. But thinking more intentionally about that, like intention is also one of my favorite words, and so is alignment. And so I was like, okay, well, how can that be? Because I have create a life you love, but creating a life you love with intention, authenticity, and purpose. But is that too broad? So maybe creating a life I love and empowering others to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as in that might be what you're getting to as far as your
like
personal
I'm starting
philosophy?
to work for it. So I started like very broad, like macro level, and then I started just going on tangents with different words and kind of ironing out like where that would be and settling around something around like creating a life I love and empowering others to do the same.
Okay, so keep that open. Well, now it's turning to affirmation, but I guess it could be that kind of too. But creating a life you love and whatting other people?
Empowering others to do the same.
And empowering others to do the same. And I'll read some of those top things you just wrote. The planning and expecting miracles. So that's you creating your life.
Then faith, like exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or think. Using my testimony, my gifts, experiences,
that's
and
working with others.
Heart, soul, and courage. Taking risks others can't or won't. Manifest, rebuild. Creating access, self-care, self-love, exposure, learning, unlearning, being a catalyst for change and uplift.
So that's good. I think you got something, or that's the thing to tighten up, because creating a life that I love, like that sounds broad, but now you also have it so mapped out where it's like it includes those things. But if you're saying like I'm creating a life that I love and empowering others to do the same, how can you see that working for you as you're like making decisions?
And so thinking about business opportunity. So like I have a lot of skills. Like I used to be an engineer. I have a lot of actual like learned skills and gifts that might not necessarily be in alignment with that. And I could lie to myself and be like, well, you being an architect, or not an architect because I'm not that, but an engineer, on a construction project is helping someone else do this. So technically you're helping, but it's not really in alignment. And so being real with myself on it. So maybe getting a little bit more clear, like, is this actually helping empower the communities that I care about? So thinking about that, like underserved, under-resourced communities, is this helping create access for them? Is it giving them actionable tools? So that's the empowerment part. And it's like, no, it's actually just giving me money and making someone else richer. Okay, so maybe that's not a good thing. But this other project, like working with this curriculum in schools co-work, or accepting this board position on this nonprofit, is in alignment because they are doing those exact things where your heart is.
And then not challenging your thought process on the engineer part. But another thing about that is, what stops you from saying, oh yeah, I'm making a lot of money and now I can use that money to help people? And that was a question I was getting as you were talking about that. But then I also realized, but now that doesn't fit in with the first part of your thing where it's creating the life you love.
Exactly.
Oh, so I was like, oh, you can still help people, but it doesn't matter if you're miserable. So, okay. So it's like really
that's a good self-check.
Making sure that it fits both of those things. First, you're okay. And I like how you have you first in this sense, like creating your life that you love and / to empower other people to do the same thing. And it's also not putting anything on them, telling them what they should or shouldn't be doing. But I guess kind of wanting people to kind of go through those same types of self-exploration and awareness to figure those things out for themselves too.
Yeah, I think that they have to. I think everybody has to, because it looks very differently. Like a life you love is very different from a life that I love and someone else. And also I think like being a catalyst. So, Tupac quote, like, I might not change the world, but I'll spark the mind of the person who will. So maybe even someone seeing me being happy and knowing me, like the people who know where I'm from and all these things. Like I have had people reach out and be like, Doc, I know where you from. Like, I am so proud of you and I've seen the growth. So maybe, me just walking in my purpose is also inspiring other people to do the same and opening doors in ways that me like trying to give them something or telling them to do something couldn't do.
Yeah. And so Carlie did that really quick too. And like, you're familiar with mind mapping and things of that nature. And so yours may not like come together that quick like I did mine. And I didn't even really all the way come to like a conclusion. But the point of that is like if you're writing out, especially just a bunch of thoughts, words, connecting it how you can, to look at that and see what stands out. Did you keep saying something more than other things, or is there a certain theme? But also, what things actually are not like, oh, I don't like that, or I don't want that to necessarily be a part of it. But that may be something that kind of came out while you were doing it too. So paying attention to that, and narrowing all of that kind of down to getting either a couple words or like how Carlie did, a phrase that you can then use.
And I've been doing this for a couple of years, so that's why it came together so fast. So I've really been trying to figure this out. I think some of the keys for it is to just do it quickly, like maybe set a timer for 5 minutes, or that might be a long time, but just to write and not to censor yourself. Because so often we'll be like, oh, I don't really do that yet, or I don't feel like I can write that down. And so you'll try to like, and that's why I say also write it out with your hand, like physically write them down, like start writing things out, because you're not going to cross them off, just keep going. And then also don't write down things that you think people want you to write down or things that people expect you to write down. Like I didn't put yoga on here once. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Because that's why you was lost in the first place, because you're like, this might not necessarily correlate with everything, right? So,
exactly. So not starting of where you think who you should be or where you should be or all those things, but really trying to get down to what is your personal philosophy. And so all that is personal. So shaking off all those things, not second guessing yourself. And if you go on a tangent, go on a tangent. Like I like how Lex was about authenticity. Like that's huge to me. And when I spoke on a panel a couple weeks ago, I said the word authentic and authenticity a lot. I didn't write it down once on here, even though it is very important to me, but that's okay. But she had growth and like underlined it and circled it and kind of go on a tangent. There's no right way or wrong way to do it, but allowing yourself the space just to be and to figure out what that is.
And that is a good tip, because that's what was hard about it for me. And what is hard for me when I'm trying to mind map or something is that I already think I know the answer, even though I'm trying to like fake explore my mind. And so even with this, I'm like, shoot, I couldn't get off of that one word. And I wish I could branch out a little more, but it's hard for me to just write things because as you can probably hear when I'm talking half the time, like my mind is already past like what I'm trying to say or do. So it's like I'm thinking, but I'm kind of forgetting. I'm trying to write and get it down. But also it's hard for me to not make a complete thought when I'm writing. So it's hard for me to just write stuff that doesn't quite flow, because now I'm looking at it like I got to make that make sense. So yeah, just try to write it. It might not make as much sense. Or if you just try to do words, maybe that's something I would try to do if I redo this and like get a lot of words down instead of trying to like make the statement as I go, because that's probably part of the issue. But yeah, try to just freestyle it and just go.
And I noticed a lot of mine weren't even connected. Like I was making like a sentence and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And then I wrote 2 words off to the side because I didn't think that they went with the thing. And so it's a bunch of chicken scratch on this page. But it's also a fun thing because it's like, you know, when I do have a set amount of time and I'm under the gun, like what are those things that are most important to me? What does stand out?
Yeah. And so now that we have kind of like a working personal philosophy, what's the point? Like, what does that do for you now? What can you imagine that you can do with that?
I think even without having this, now that I have it, it'll be a lot easier. But when I first graduated and I was being an entrepreneur, I was making everything fit into what I was doing. Like, oh, everything fits. It all works. Oh,
like always justifying.
Yeah, always justifying what I was doing. Because like I said, we're smart, all of us, and we can make things sound as good as we want to. Like, oh yeah, I can
definitely. Yourself and being delusional.
I almost tricked myself into being a consultant after graduation. Do you know how miserable? I would have already quit. Yeah, I would have been done. Yeah, it would have been on the news. But but I really had to get real with myself and think, and then figuring out, like, I knew I wanted to work in the community and help kids. I didn't have it this mapped out yet, but I had to say no to things that were not that, which in my head was a sacrifice, but I would have been miserable and I wouldn't be as far along with this as I am. And so now that I am much more clear on what this philosophy is, and like who I care about, who I am, what I care about, what gifts I feel like I want to share and bring to things, it's a lot easier to know what I bring into situations. So knowing what I have to offer, if I were to try to partner with somebody, I can say, actually, like, these are my skills. This is what type of partnership I want to have. So thinking about like what I bring to relationships and partnerships, also saying no to things that might be magnificent opportunities, but aren't necessarily in alignment. And I think just taking pressure off myself that I have to do everything just because I can. Like, just because I'm good at stuff doesn't mean I have to do it. And that's okay too.
And I liked one of the first of those 3 things, ways that you said it could help you, because even though it seems kind of broad to be like creating a life I love and empowering others, that's like your checklist right there of what the opportunities, like, is this going to empower anybody? If it's not, then it's like, maybe that you don't really want to do that thing. And obviously the love you part is like, all right, is this something I really want to do? Or noticing too, like, there is stuff you might not want to do. It doesn't mean like you don't do anything that you need to do. But is this adding towards those aspects? Like, is it adding to all of them? Like, it's a win-win-win, and yours is good too, because it's a win for you and for the world. And I think that's one of our missions, and that makes your life purposeful because you're living authentically in it, which is my thing.
Hey.
And in the same time, you're impacting others to have more skills, more opportunity, and you want them to feel the same way that you feel about whatever matters to them. And so I feel like that energy in taking your personal philosophy and literally ways to apply it, like, if starting your morning with that, and maybe in a way that you do affirmations or whatever, or it could just be your simple checkpoint thing that like, all right, when you have a big decision or any decisions, it's like, all right, is it going with this? And kind of letting that be your, without thinking too hard or overthinking stuff, be a quick like, nope, or it kind of does fit that.
And I was so quick to only apply it to work things, but it's a life thing. Like when I think about relationship decisions and friendships and even outings and things that I'm doing, with myself, and taking it back to Hero P's episode, like, is this in alignment with my version of Hero P, Super CC or whatever I am, and making sure that I hold myself accountable to that. It's not just about doing the things that feel good. That's not a life that I love. A life that I love is when all my ducks in a row, I'm taking care of the shit I need to take care of in order to do the things that I love. So that does involve me sitting down and doing systems and processes and things for my business that I don't necessarily enjoy. Yeah. But in order to do the things I love, sometimes you got to do those.
And it just helps you understand why you're doing what you're doing. Like, and I said before a few episodes ago, like, I don't have fear of missing out, because I enjoy what I'm doing at the moment. So I could be at home while everybody's at the party, or I can be out when everybody's at home, or whatever it is. And I'm being authentic to me because that's what I want to be doing. So like, I feel good, and I just don't have any issues because I know I've made my decisions in that space. And I found that the times I do start to kind of feel uncomfortable, or like I just said earlier, like maybe last week, I was kind of having a like, man, what am I doing moment again? And it's just that reminder, like, you just see certain things, put that together. And I think anytime I feel like that, it's always a go back to your kind of vision and personal philosophy moment. And that always gives me a boost. And that's a reminder too that it may change or it may develop or evolve, which is fine. And I'm definitely good for that. Like, this was 2017, so I could probably sit down and maybe get something a little tighter or a little different. But it really helps recenter you.
And I love that. And you said it kind of gives you a boost. And I was just about to say, like, yo, like, we started this episode, I was like, damn, like, I am that person. Like, I don't know what I'm doing and all these things, but I very much do.
Right. And that's the same with last giving yourself credit, because we know it. It's just, and even that statement, again, I feel like that's a statement you would have said any given day or in any episode, right? Because it's very Carlie. And if somebody heard that, they'd be like, oh yeah, that is you. And it's so simple, but to say it really, it feels like, oh, okay. It kind of feels different for some reason, or like powerful or something.
For me, it's kind of like ownership. Like, I'm taking ownership of like, this is my portion. This is what I've chosen and what I decided to do. And I'm doing those things. Like, I think about my whole day yesterday, and I was like, all of it. It's like stuff that I love, and empowering others to do the same. Like, every single thing I did yesterday. Every single thing I did yesterday. Like,
if you could have your column of like, was it in that or not in that, and just putting all the things you did, I wonder how that would look.
Exactly. And that might be my challenge for y'all this week. If you go through this and develop your own personal philosophy, or even if it's still in the works, to make a list of all the stuff that you do and that you are doing, and checking to see if it checks those boxes, if it's in alignment with those things. So add us, Carlie's Couch, Lextopia, CC Fierce. Yeah. And let us know. I would love to see that. I'm going to do it this week.
That's what I found out, where it was like, that's why I wanted to change my services in my company. Or that's why I wanted to stop doing certain things or helping with certain projects. I'm like, yo, it doesn't feel good for me, and that doesn't feel authentic to me, so I don't want to do it. Or I want my services to be different because I want it to be focused more on community or more on something else. Yeah. And so it's okay and it makes more sense to understand yourself and take your own philosophy and, like you said, applying it outward instead of taking your situation and trying to apply that and trick yourself into thinking something. No, like, ownership of your life means that you can make those choices to change things. It can be hard, but it's not hard. Like, you can change things even on the smallest levels, like to make it fit yourself and your real thoughts and what makes you happy and all of that. But sometimes I think we just don't know what that is.
Yeah, and some people might be like, well, I mean, that's nice. Y'all are entrepreneurs. You can do this. But even if you're at a job, like if you're optional, like to take on different projects or to get on certain teams, like are the management and leadership opportunities you're taking, are the extracurricular activities that you're doing, are you in like a business association, are the things that you're doing in alignment with where you want to be and with who you are?
Yep, that's it.
That's it, fam. I'll be excited to hear yours this week.
Yeah, so I want you guys, look up the Lewis Howes episode by Michael Gervais. And if you want to get more background on that and hear that man actually talk about his own stuff.
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah, cool. And then like Carlie said, try it for yourself. Go through the exercise of mind mapping that out. Let us know if you come up with anything cool. And challenge yourself to then take that and say, okay, I'm more aware this week of seeing if my decisions and the choices I'm making really do fall into that, or if this is maybe why I feel out of alignment because they're not.
Yeah. And knowing that it's okay if they are, just start to iterate and get away from that.
Yep. So enjoy creating your personal philosophies this week. I hope that was helpful to you, or for anybody who's feeling like, man, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I hope that this was helpful. Send it to somebody if you have any friends who've had conversations like this with you. And it might be a tool that can help them as well.
Even if you're doing vision board parties, because we're about to get to that time of year, like maybe this is something you add to that and make sure that everything is in alignment with your philosophy and vision. Yeah,
it's fourth quarter, December. Hey. And, you got to tighten this up. Start the year out fresh, but don't even wait till January 1. Like right now, like, figure it out. Use this December time. It's usually slower a little bit for people, except for family folks. Child. But, use this time to really think about, like, all right, how am I going to come into the new year? And, like, how am I going to get my energy right? And how am I going to understand myself in a way that allows me to make those changes in my life on the outside?
We about that action. So make it happen. This week's shout out is for the panel that I was just on with some amazing women. I left feeling super empowered and in alignment, which is awesome. And it was on building your brand and business through social media. It was at USC, sponsored by Troy Labs and the Female Quotient. And then one of my classmates and friends who is a professional influencer and Instagrammer, she's super brilliant and amazing. Her name is Chris Hahn. And so shout out to her and all the other amazing women that were on the panel. Like I said, it was really dope to hear people working, within their brands and how they establish them and like little tips and tricks that they've used to grow their businesses and to also give back to communities and things that they care about.
Cool. And congratulations on being on that exciting panel.
Thank you.
This week, our question is, what is the most difficult decision that you've made lately?
Oh, man.
I don't know what I'm going to say either. Hold up.
I know. I was trying to ask you first, but you jumped the gun on me.
Or what is a difficult decision maybe? Because it might not be the most, but what is a difficult decision that you've made lately?
I think saying no to opportunities that I think are great or fun or amazing, but really scaling back and realizing if they're not in alignment and or if I'm tired. And like I just don't have it in me. Like I can't actually go to that. I'm really exhausted, but this seems so amazing. So that was hard for me. It is hard for me to say no to things. But I guess in hindsight, is it really hard if it's not in alignment? I don't know.
Okay. I hate saying I don't have an answer, but I'm trying to really think, and I cannot think of a difficult decision that I made lately. Like something that I was like kind of contemplating around. I cannot.
It's okay. You don't always have to have the answers, Alexia.
I came up with a question.
Yeah, let her know. She doesn't always have to have the answers.
Something had to have been difficult. I don't think.
But does it? Because you literally just tweeted like you don't. Because you do the things that you want to do.
I guess I'm thinking about like situational, like if it's ever like you have to choose between something, and I don't think I feel like that a lot of times. Maybe
me neither.
All right,
you don't want to share any spy stories?
No. I feel like that was starting to trigger something, and now I can't think of it.
Damn it! I tried, y'all. I be trying.
Oh gosh!
Back on next week's episode of Blacklist.
I don't got nothing. Maybe I'll think about something later. All right, guys. Thank you for being a part of this episode. I don't know why I'm doing that. Peace. Bye.